Hey guys, it's Yvette and I'm coming back at you with another video. Today I'm going to focus on how to make a hot sauce that in Guatemala is called chirmol. Now I'm not from Guatemala, however my husband is, and people tend to do this hot sauce in different ways. Some people boil it, some people roast the vegetables. I prefer boiling the vegetables. I find it much easier and a little bit less hassle. And I think it tastes just as good. I still make it a little different each and every time, but this is the way I'm gonna make it today. So if you're interested in seeing how I make it, go ahead and make sure to keep on watching. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing. Thanks. So we're gonna get ready to make that chirmol. I'm gonna show you what it is you're gonna need for that. You'll want some cilantro, couple of jalapenos or serrano peppers, whatever kind of hot chili you like. I'm gonna use some small onions. I've had a leftover onion, so I'm gonna use that too. That should be enough. I've got 5 jalapenos and 1 serrano. I'm gonna use 3 big tomatoes. You just wanna portion it out. If you don't want it super spicy, add more tomatoes. If you want it more spicy, take away tomatoes or add more peppers. You kind of play around with it how you like. A cutting board and a knife to cut these things up. The first thing you'll want to do is make sure to fill up your pot. You're gonna throw a majority of these in that pot. And then I'm gonna wash my veggies ever so slightly. And if you'll notice, these veggies, they're not the most beautiful veggies you've ever seen. However, it doesn't matter. With this recipe, you don't really need the most aesthetically pleasing vegetables. If anything is freaking you out, for example, this little piece right here, I'm just gonna chop it off. And then voila, it's gone. Stick on their tomatoes, and then you just wash these peppers again. They are not the most aesthetically pleasing. A lot of these were actually green when I bought them, but they have been sitting for a week or so.
This serrano looks beautiful, I must say. I like the serrano. And the last one.
Now they're nice in there. We're gonna stick it on top of the oven. You'll want to turn your heat onto high and just let that boil. I'm going to take you back over to the counter and we'll get started on the other portions of it. Next step is, while that's boiling, if you want to get on top of things, you can start chopping up your onions and cilantro. So you want to do a small, pretty small chop. This hot sauce is great for when you have vegetables that are maybe going a little bit south. You can obviously make it with fresh vegetables, but if you have any that are not so aesthetically pleasing anymore and you happen to like hot sauce, then this is great. Pour a couple spoonfuls of it in the hard-boiled eggs, and then it's just delicious. I absolutely love it. As you can see here, I'm doing a very small dice, more or less. It's pretty decent, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to get them fairly small. If you're not satisfied, you just give a rough chop when it's like this. And you know what? Another ingredient that I actually forgot is some salt. You'll want to have some salt on standby for the end of the recipe. You can use any salt. I like to use pink Himalayan salt, but you can use any salt that you desire. I would say that this is good if you don't love onions, but I actually like a bit of the crunch in mine, so I am going to cut up this small onion. You could cut these into rings. If you like, if you don't feel comfortable or like it's slipping, you could turn it on its side. Tomatoes and peppers are starting to boil, but you want to leave them boiling for just a little bit, you know, while they can get a little soft. And I'll take you to take a look at those in a minute. What I'm actually going to do is, when we're done with the hot sauce, I will boil the eggs in the water. Perfect. And honestly, if you make too much, you can save the onions for a guacamole. If you like them raw in salads, it's not going to hurt you to have too much. Go ahead and rinse the cilantro. We're going to cut that next. So this is quite a bit of cilantro as well, but honestly, I love me some good cilantro, so yeah. And I like to cut the stem off. Kind of where this rubber band is going to be my guide. I am not the best cilantro chopper, so, you know, if you have a better way to do it, definitely do it your way. But for those folks of ours who don't know, anyway, this is my way. I fold the cilantro in half, and then I start just giving it a rough chop. To me, this is good enough, so I'm gonna go ahead and find a bowl for that as well, and we'll go from there. Again, being very careful. Always making sure to clean your station. Let me go ahead and take you over to the boiling pot. So that's what it starts to look like. I'm gonna give it a few more minutes and then we will move on to the next step. It's been about 10 or so minutes since I last showed you guys the boiling vegetables. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn off the stove, and one by one I'm going to put them in the blender. Here, you want to use a glass blender because this is pretty hot. And then also a slotted spoon. So what you'll want to do is, probably first than anything, is scoop out your tomatoes and just kind of drain them and then plop them in. Drain it. There's two. You don't need to do anything to tomatoes but simply put them in. Here we go. And sometimes you'll want to just crush them a little bit and stick them in. They don't fit. They're going to naturally release water. So there's already a little bit of water in there just coming out of the tomatoes. Next, what we'll do, we're going to scoop out the peppers. Now, you don't want the stem from the jalapenos or the peppers on there. So carefully, what you do is, if you can, you just pluck it off. The vegetables are so soft that you can just literally pluck it off. If, however, it gives you any sort of trouble, you have your cutting board there and knife to just cut off the stem. You don't cut off anything else. You leave the seeds in there unless you don't want them in there. You can take them out. Grab the stem, and I actually use the spoon itself to pull it off. It just slides right out. So again, draining. Grab the stem. Ooh, this one's hot. Grab the stem and pull it out. Oof, that one was giving me a little bit of trouble. Now that they're cooked through, the blisters have kind of gone away more than anything, and they've gotten rehydrated. So you probably can't see from that far, but the water level is about here on there. You could try blending it just like that and it'll come out a little bit thicker. I personally want it to not struggle in the blender, so what I would do now is I'm going to grab the spoon, this one, put a little bit more water. Not too much, just a little bit at a time. I'm going to stick the lid on there. That moment when your camera runs out of memory and you lose half the footage. So, since the last time you saw this, I have already made the hot sauce. Basically what you do, the last clip you saw was me putting them in there one by one. The water level was a little bit low, so I did grab a spoon and put some of the hot liquid from what it was boiling in into the blender. I blended it up using the liquefy feature, and it came out very thick, so I wanted it a little more watery. I put some more water in it, and I'm going to show you right now what it looks like. So I made the quick disclaimer when I was blending it that you want to make sure you have a lid on, because if not, you'll have a very great explosion. And it's pretty hot, so I'm not sure if it's in the other clip, but just in case it isn't, you want to use a glass blender. You know, the container. I have a Ninja blender, however, it specifically says on the instructions not to use anything hot in it. The reason why is because it's plastic. This is glass, so it's a little safer, but you want to be very careful regardless. So it's still pretty thick. It's up to you whether or not you want to add water. Really, the last step I'm going to show you is just me kind of putting the finishing touches all together. So I'm going to stop the clip here and then get us set up to get ready to put it all away and put it all together. So when you're making this hot sauce, you have a few options. You can let it cool in the blender and then you can put it in a plastic container. But if you want to get going right away, I suggest you use a glass container. I've learned the hard way that not waiting for it to cool and using plastic is not a good idea, because if you've ever put anything hot in plastic, it shrinks. So again, you can either wait for it to cool and put it in a plastic bowl if you don't have any glass bowls, or if you do, go ahead and use a glass bowl. So I'm not sure if this is all gonna fit into this glass bowl, but if not, no worries, I have other bowls. But what you do is you pour it in. Yeah, it's looking like it's not gonna fit all the way. Yeah, it's definitely not. So what I'll do is I'm gonna get another bowl right now. I'm gonna pour the rest of this in there and use my trusty spoon to scoop out the rest of this goodness, because trust me, when you eat it, you're gonna want more, baby. Anywho, I took it out of the lid and everything. You'll want to pour your cilantro in there. I'm doing it a little fancy since I'm filming this, but honestly, you can throw it all at the end, at the beginning, intermittently, as you see me doing here. Whatever you like. It really does not matter. Anywho, it's a lot of onion, as you can see, but there's still a lot of sauce left, so no worries, guys, no worries. Now, we're gonna have to figure out how to strategically pour this in here without burning ourselves. And I burnt myself just a hair, but it's all right, do it. Just cleaning up the station as we go. So as you can see, now there's not a lot, which means we need more. Trust me, y'all, I've made this a couple times. I'm already getting the hang of it. So we're gonna throw the rest of the cilantro in here. And this is when it's very handy to have that spoon ready and on standby. You stick it in. And we're gonna throw the rest of the onions in there. Again, if you don't like onions all that much, you can just put a little bit in there. I wouldn't say omit it, because I think it really does add a nice little crunch. And the longer it sits in your fridge marinating, the onions kind of almost get cooked up, honestly, by the heat. Especially if you cut them up really small, as I suggested earlier. So you just mix it. And we're pretty much almost done. The only thing now is to salt to taste. If you don't want to salt it, that is fine too, but I personally think putting in just a dash of salt is going to make all the difference between a good sauce and a banging sauce. So that's what I'm going to do now. Again, you can use any kind of salt that you like. We are trying to be health conscious around here. So you like to use pink Himalayan salt, and this is going to look like a lot, but it's really not for the amount. So I did about 4 little scoops. I'm going to mix that in. Make sure it's nice and incorporated, and then I will give it a taste test. And you can use this on top of boiled eggs like I do. You can have it as a salsa for dip. We've had it in a nacho bar. You can have it with your rice and beans on the side. You can eat this in lots of different dishes. So I highly recommend it, and anyone I've given it to really likes it. So just saying. Got a little bit of a kick. It's not super spicy, this one. I would say this is like a mild flavor. I'm going to give it one more little taste test because I want to make sure that it's good. I think it's good, but I want to add just a little more salt. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just a touch more. And that's where I would max it out. That's enough salt. Again, I'm going to mix it, and then we will go from there. So the boil actually consumed most of the water. I went ahead and added more water to the existing pile. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to boil eggs in that same water. I definitely take advantage when I make that hot sauce, and I maximize it to the best of my abilities, because honestly, you gotta work smarter, not harder, I say. So I'm sticking in, I don't even know how many eggs. There is about 4, 8, there's 12 eggs in here, and I think that's where I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna give these guys a nice quick sauna, jacuzzi style bath. And then when they're done, I'll peel them all, stick them in a container, and we're good to go for breakfast for a few days. So that does conclude the video. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you learned something, and if not, that you just enjoyed watching the video. Thank you again for taking the time and spending it with me, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.